Section 14.5, writing trig functions from the graph. All right, so the first is a vocabulary word. Sinusoid is the graph of a sine or cosine function. So if I give you a sinusoid, can you write the function? Can you write out the equation that represents? That's what you're going to be able to do. Let's see. The two functions that we're going to be working with are sine and cosine today. What you've got is y equals a sine of b times the quantity x minus h plus k, and cosine is the same thing. With these parts, what we got is the a is the amplitude. So, and that's, you remember that's the absolute value, so it's the distance to the top and to the bottom. So the a is the amplitude. The b is part of, that's found within the period, remember, which is the length of one cycle of the sine curve, so, or the cosine curve. So 2 pi over b, that's where the b comes from. The x will stay the same. The h is going to come from the horizontal shift, if we shift that whole side, the whole curve up or down, and the k is going to be the vertical shift. Guess what? Horizontal is left and right, and you're saying, huh, I knew that already. Horizontal is, did we shift it left and right? The K is the vertical shift. Did we shift it up or down? All right, so here's what we're going to do. I've got some 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or just 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got some steps. Let's follow the steps to determine what is the formula for this curve right here is what we'll do. Step 1 is, and you probably will want these steps written in your notes. Step 1 is, what is the minimum and maximum height? What's the highest and lowest height of your curve? So what we've got here is, I've marked them. The top is 5 and the bottom is 1. So the height is 5, so the maximum is 5 and the minimum is -1. We're going to use those to figure a couple of different things. So that's not part of your, it's not part of your formula, but it will help you to figure parts of your formula. All right, so the next thing we're going to figure is the vertical shift. Once we find the vertical shift, then we can figure some of the other things from there. The vertical shift is the mean of the minimum and maximum. So we take the minimum and maximum, the 5 plus a -1, and we're going to add them and then divide by 2. That's the mean, is to add the 2 and divide by 2. So 5 minus 1 is 4 divided by 2. So K equals 2. So already we have one part of our function, and I didn't see where I was going to write that. Let's just write it right here. This is going to be y equals a. And then we need the cosine or sine, and we need b, and we're going to have x minus h plus k, and we know k now is 2. All right, so we're going to be filling these things in as we go. All right, next thing we need to know, well, is this a sine curve or is this a cosine curve? All right, so first we determine, well, is it sine or cosine? We know that this graph was shifted up 2. So if we start at 2 up right here, this is the beginning of our sinusoid. So this crosses the y-axis right here. So if you'll remember, the sine curve crosses at starts at the y-axis and then goes up or down. And that's why I have marked here positive or negative. If it goes up from here, then it's going to be positive. If it goes down from here, then it's going to be negative. With either one, either the sine or the cosine. I take that back. With a sine, if it goes up, it's positive. With cosine, you are either at the minimum or the maximum at this point. If you're at the maximum, then it's going to be a positive curve. If you're at the minimum and the curve is downward, if the curve opens upward, then that becomes actually a negative cosine because it flips it. All right. So what we have here, because it crosses the y-axis at 2, this is a sine curve. So we can put sine here. And it is going upward, so it is going to be positive. So we've got sine, and we know that the horizontal shift is 0 because it crossed right at that point. All right, so if it crosses either at the point of your K, or if it crosses at yes, if it crosses, if the middle of your sinusoid crosses there, or if the minimum or maximum is at that point, then your horizontal shift is 0. It didn't shift at all. So our horizontal shift is 0. And now we just have to find the amplitude and the period. So we need the A and the B. The amplitude is going to be it's going to be half of the distance between your minimum and maximum. All right, so the amplitude is going to be your minimum plus your maximum. Sorry, is it the difference? Oh, it's the difference, yeah, because we're adding both. So minimum minus the maximum, or maximum minus the minimum, divided by 2. So the difference between this is we're adding the 2 together and dividing by 2. With this, we're subtracting the 2. We're finding the difference between the minimum and maximum. And we're going to take half of that. So that becomes 6 over 2, which is 3. So this is our A. So A is 3. The amplitude is the difference between the minimum and maximum, but it's half of that because it's how far up and how far down you went. And then the period is found by 2 pi over b. So we've got, or the period is not found by that. The period, remember, is from the beginning to the end of one cycle of that sinusoid. So if we've started here, we went up and down and back up to this point here, to the same point, that's going to be pi over 2. So the period equals pi over 2, and the period is also 2 pi over b. So to figure out what our b is, you're going to find out, well, what is the period? You can find that from your graph and set that equal to 2 pi over b, and then simply solve for b. So you do that by get the b out of the denominator by multiplying by b. And then we're going to get rid of the pi over 2 by multiplying by the reciprocal. So these will cancel and these will cancel, and the pi's will cancel, and so 4 equals b. Did you see where I got that? All right, and so b is right here is 4. And now we have our formula. We have our formula for our curve, and now we simply need to simplify it because this is x minus 0. So then we just are going to write it as y equals 3 sine of 4x plus 2. And that's your final answer. All right? So find the minimum and the maximum. You're going to use that to find the vertical shift and the amplitude. You're going to determine this, whether it's sine or cosine, simply by looking at the graph and determining, does it cross the y-axis in the middle there, or does it cross the y-axis at the minimum or maximum? And then check to see, does it go, is it positive or negative? Is it the correct way? Is it going to go up or is it going to go down? And then the period using 2 pi over b. And I think that's it. All right? Good luck. See you soon.